your name.
How majestic is your name.
Oh Lord, in all the earth, your name is strong.
Your name is strong and mighty. Your name is glorious and great.
In him we, the name of Jesus,
Another name.
King of all kings, no other name.
Like him.
The name of Jesus, higher, Alpha and Omega.
No other name like him.
The name of Jesus, higher, Alpha, no other name. The name of Jesus, higher, Alpha and Omega.
No other name like him.
How majestic is your name, say.
How majestic is your name.
Oh Lord, in all the earth, your name is strong.
Your name is strong and mighty.
Hey, your name is glorious and great.
In him we are saved.
How majestic is your name, Jesus.
How majestic is your name.
Oh Lord,
Oh Lord,
in all the earth, your name is strong and mighty. Yeah, lift your hands up. The name of Jesus, King of all kings, no other name. The name of Jesus, it is high, Alpha and Omega. No other name. The name of Jesus, King of all kings, no other name. The name of Jesus is higher, Alpha and Omega. No other name. Any other God, any other God, any other God. Jesus died. We lift you higher. In your name. In your name. Oh man, oh say one more time. Come on. Any other God, any other God, any other God. Jesus died and he rose. We lift him higher. Lift your hands higher. Praise the name of the Lord. In your name. We call upon his name. Call his name. Call his name. We call your name, Lord. Oh, call his name. Jesus. Jesus. Oh, call his name. We call your name, Lord. We call your name, Lord. Call his name. Shout the name. Jesus. Jesus. Call his name. Jesus. Jesus. Oh. Jesus. No other name like your name, Jesus. Lift your hands high and worship him. Thank you for your name, Jesus. No other name. We thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Father. Still with your hands lifted high, just begin to wave to Jesus. Thank you, Father, for what you do, and what you've done for us. He has done great things. He has done great done great things.
He has done great things.
He has done. Great things, lift your voice and sing it out. Time, I will bless the Lord. Oh, my soul, and all that is within me. Holy. So I will not forget what you've done for me. Thank you, Lord. I will not forget, Father, what you've done for me. Thank you, Lord. You want to lift your voice and say, I will not forget.
What you've done for me.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Lord.
I will not forget.
I will not forget
What you've done for me.
what you've done for me.
Thank you, Lord. Say thank you, Lord. Thank you. what you've done.
for me.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Lord.
I will not forget
I will not forget
what you've done. Thank you, Lord. Lift your hands to Jesus. Say thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Lord.
We thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Lord.
Say thank you, Lord.
Thank you,
For all you do.
thank you, Lord.
I will not forget. I will not
Forget what you've done for me. Thank you, Lord.
Put your hands together for Jesus and give him a shout of praise. Come on, give him a shout. Put your hands together. Give him another shout. Bless the Lord,
Bless the Lord,
oh my soul,
my soul,
and all that's within
and all
me.
that's within me.
Bless his holy
Bless
name.
His holy name.
Bless the Lord,
Bless the Lord,
oh my soul,
my soul,
and all that's within
and
me.
all that's within me. Bless His holy name.
Come on, bless the Lord,
Bless the Lord,
oh my soul,
my soul,
and all that's within
and
me.
all that's within me. Bless
You want to
His
sing it
holy
again?
name.
Bless the Lord,
Bless the Lord,
oh my soul,
my soul,
and all that's within
and all that's
me.
within me.
Everybody,
Bless His holy
sing
name.
hallelujah,
Hallelujah,
hallelujah, hallelujah. You are worthy.
worthy of my
Sing
praise.
hallelujah,
Hallelujah,
hallelujah, hallelujah.
you are worthy of my praise.
Put your hands together, come on. Somebody make some noise. Hey. Come on now. Love the Lord, oh my soul.
My soul,
Sing of his awesome works.
His awesome
Magnify his name.
His name.
Love the Lord,
Love the Lord,
oh my soul.
my soul.
Sing of his awesome works.
His awesome works. Magnify His name.
Sing it again, sing it again.
Love the Lord,
Oh my soul.
my soul.
Sing of his awesome works.
His awesome works.
Come on, one more time.
Magnify His name.
Hey, love the Lord,
Love the Lord,
oh my soul.
my soul.
Sing of his awesome works.
Awesome works.
Hey,
Magnify His
sing hallelujah,
Hallelujah,
hallelujah, hallelujah. He alone is worthy.
worthy of my
Sing hallelujah,
Indeed, our Lord is worthy of our praise. Why don't you turn to somebody and give them a wonderful smile on this beautiful Tuesday evening? If you have a smile available, give somebody a smile next to you. Shake them by the hand and welcome them. Welcome a second person. Welcome a third person. And if both hands are yours, put your hands together and give God a shout of praise. Kindly be seated in God's presence. On behalf of Dr. and Mrs. Otabil, I welcome you to Christ Temple of the International Central Gospel Church and to our first of our live seminars 2019. It's going to be a beautiful month this November as we focus on building our asset base, building our finance base, and building our career base. And when I come back after this song ministry, I'm going to give you the breakdown of what we have today. But turn to your neighbor, tell them it's going to be special. Tell them don't miss even one session. How many believe that by the time November comes to an end, you'll be richer and stronger, better prepared for the future? Everything will be established in your life. Put your hands together one more time for the Lord. It's now time for song ministry, and bringing us a song, I Have a God. Let's welcome Dave Oforiata. Let's put our hands together as he comes.
Your rod and your staff, they comfort me, yes they do. You're my solid rock, in you I live and move and have my being. Oh, I have a God, and with him I'll be right. I have a God, yeah. Hallelujah.
Who will never ever fail.
Deepest in darkness,
hallelujah. He's always by my side.
He's always by my side, yeah.
I have a God.
Come on.
Just with him I'll be alright.
Come on. Let's go, yeah. We have a God who never fails. Hallelujah. je ne crains aucun mal, yeah, car tu es avec moi. Ta roulette et ton bâton me rassurent, yeah. Le Dieu de miracles, le Dieu de l'impossible, oh. Tu es avec moi, tu es avec moi, chaque jour de ma vie, yeah. Anytime, come on, say, anytime I hit the ground, yeah, my Savior is always around to
Save and deliver me from bondage, set me free. Anytime I call, He answers. Yes, He has the power to do great miracles.
Now listen to this. My God, He will never forsake me.
My God, He will never forsake me.
He will never forsake me.
He will never forsake me.
My God, He will never forsake me.
My God, He will never forsake me.
He will never forsake me.
He will never forsake me.
My God, He will never forsake me.
My God, He will never forsake me.
He will never forsake me.
He will never forsake me.
He will never leave me. He will
My God, He will never
never
forsake
forsake me.
me.
He will never, never.
He will never forsake me.
Say, shabba-dabba-dabba-dabba. Come on.
Indeed, your God will never leave you nor forsake you. Put your hands together one more time for Dave Oforiata. Praise God. Well, a year ago, in a series that he was preaching, Dr. Otabil clearly indicated that every human being on this earth must aspire to own a portion of this earth that you call your own. Is that a good idea? How many want to own a portion? Wonderful. Now, life seminars are seminars designed by the senior pastor himself to help actualize some of the things that are taught from the pulpit. That means that beyond just encouraging people to build and own homes, creating a seminar-style program where practical solutions can be provided so that people can action the various things they learn from the pulpit. And over the years, life seminars have been very critical additions to our service offering as a church. And throughout this month of November, there will be life seminars. Today we are looking at building your asset base. Next week we will look at building your finance base. And then the third one will look at building your career base. And for each of them, there are various levels of information that are available for you. Let me also indicate that this year we have added a very special feature, that is the life improvement fairs. From 3 p.m. today, several of you have come through the fair, gone to the stands to ask questions. How many of you made it to the stands? Did you find anything interesting? Wonderful. So invite us for your housewarming in a year or two. Somebody say amen. Wonderful. So the stands will remain open after the service so you can ask questions. Today we will extend our service time to 8:30 because there are so many important questions you want to ask and want to make sure that you can have these questions answered, after which we would encourage you not to rush off, go to the stands, find out what is there, and God could open a door for you to own your own. Let me say that today's service or today's seminar is broken into two parts, and in a minute or so, we will be breaking into two to go to two different venues, one here and one on the second floor of the extension. Let me just once again clarify which group is going to which seminar so you can finalize your thoughts. I know many of you have made up your mind before you came, but just to help you understand that you made the right decision. So this auditorium will contain group 1, which is the foundational level. We call it the foundational level because it's designed for beginners on the property ladder. Those buying their first house, those who are fresh from school, fresh graduates, fresh couples. And then those who are also thinking of buying a cost-effective home for their children or considering something in that area. So most of what we will do in this hall will focus on cost-effective solutions, the beginnings of owning property. By the grace of God, there are others also who have climbed up a bit on the ladder or climbed up quite high on the ladder and want to know interesting options out there, how to secure what God has given you, how to multiply, how to add on to it. That is what we call the advanced seminar. Now, in the foundational seminar in this auditorium, the first topic will be on how to select property, especially as a beginner. Topic 2 will be on cost-effective building, and topic 3 will be on how to finance the building that you choose. For those going upstairs to the advanced seminar, topic 1 is securing your land. You've bought the land or you are buying land, how to secure it and make sure nobody takes it away from you in this Accra that we live in. The second topic is how to build a house, a guide from start to finish, professionals showing you step 1, step 2, so your house does not collapse when the wind blows. And then the third topic is how to buy a house. The house is already there, you're going to buy. What do you look for? If you are dealing with a real estate company, what kind of company must you look for and work with? I hope these 2 seminars are clear. Are they clear? Okay, so how many are staying downstairs? Downstairs, foundational level, fantastic. How many are going upstairs? Excellent. So Zama will give us a song, and while Zama is playing, we will give a 4-minute break for those going upstairs to take your time and walk up and sit down. When you sit down, the moderator for the room will announce the first speaker. Each speaker will speak for 20 minutes. While they are speaking, please write down all the questions that you have. Now, the second speaker will follow right away after being introduced for another 20 minutes, and the third speaker will speak for 20 minutes, after which we will have a whole half hour. Ask all the questions that you have, and they will be very glad to answer your questions. They will give you straight up answers so that we can take as many questions as possible. So even if the issue you are interested in is not addressed in the main session, be assured that you can ask your questions and they will be very happy to answer the questions. We've brought some of the finest professionals you will find in the industries that we are selecting from, and we are supremely confident that they will be a blessing to you. So we'll take a 4-minute break to situate ourselves. Foundational level, stay in the auditorium, and then the advanced level, you'll be ushered upstairs. When I come back, I'll be introducing the first speaker for the foundational level. Thank you very much. put your hands together for the Lord. All right, I have some good news for you, but don't tell anyone. Dr. and Mrs. Otabil have a very special place in their hearts for this particular group. And I'm sure you know why. Because they are trusting God that every one of you will own your own house very shortly. Somebody say amen. Why don't you put your hands together for the Lord? I would like to remind you to write down your questions and ask them when the time comes up. We'll have all three speakers seated up here, and you can ask them your questions after the third speaker has spoken. Once again, this is the foundational level seminar as we build our asset base. And I would like to introduce our first speaker. Mr. Cecil Abe is the principal architect of Incept Architectural Consult, an award-winning architectural firm with a simple mantra: life by design. Incept creates inspiring spaces that simultaneously provide function and shelter in ways that touch the spirit and leave the earth a better place. That's how Christians should design companies. Tonight he speaks on property selection, how to choose a land or house, recommended locations for first-timers, and I trust that he will be a blessing to you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Dr. and Mrs. Otabil, let's welcome Mr. Cecil Abe. Let's put our hands together as he comes.
Good evening. I find it a great honor to be here, and thank God that through Dr. and Mrs. Otabil, I can share my insights with you on property selection. So where do you start for property selection? What do you look out for? What do you focus on? When will you be ready? So for me, the start is very important. Is it money? Is it the place? In my opinion, it's about mindset. Mindset. What kind of mindset do you have? Do you have a tenant mindset, an owner mindset, or a landlord mindset? I remember when we finished school and my friend was interested in getting a company that would pay his rent, would give him a car loan. And I said, you will never build a house and you will never buy a car yourself. And he said, I'd never thought about that. Today that guy is a wealthy property owner because he changed his mindset. So that's the first thing I think you should be looking at to get onto the property market. So new mindset will give you new results. There's a popular game that is big on property. It's called Monopoly. I'm sure a lot of you know about it. And it tries to simulate how the property market is in the real world. It's a board game that has various locations, low-income locations, middle-income locations, and eventually it goes to high-income locations. So I tried to depict Monopoly if it was being played in Accra, and I used 4 locations for that purpose. That is not to say any is low income or high income, but I decided to use Kaswa, Ashaliboche, East Legon, and Trasaku. So in Monopoly, after you're given some money and dice, you can move from Kaswa, and if you play well, you handle your money and your decisions well, one day you could live at Trasaku. I think that's how we should all be thinking, especially as beginners. You start from one place and you move up. So it's very important that your start to you in your mindset is not your end. Now, how to choose a land, a house, or a property? What do you think about? Do you want to copy your parents or your friends or what your church says you should do? In my opinion, you have to assess your current needs. What size of house are you looking for? Is it a 1-bed, a 2-bed, a 3-bed? What location? Where do you live presently? Where do you work? Where do you church? What purpose? Is it for business? Is it for rent? Are you going to sell it one day? Do you want to buy a property that you bequeath to your firstborn when he comes or she comes? And what price? What can you afford at this time in your life? And how soon do you want such a property? Do you need it now? Do you need it after school? Do you need it before you get married, after you get married? These are some of the questions you should ask yourself. And not just jump into, it is a nice house or it is a nice place, but really assess your needs and appreciate where you are. What's the long-term plan for such a house? As a beginner, you will not necessarily, I know you all aim to live in Trasacco one day, but you won't necessarily be able to afford that now. So you say, okay, my long-term plan is to start from here and one day I will get there. So these are the kind of properties I'll look out for. And with property, you should always be mindful that at what risk? At what risk to the location? Nowadays, it's not just about whether you get a property and land guards will come for it. It's not just you get a property and there are thieves in an area, but you might get a property and it might flood. Now, that's the reality. So, selection of various properties, there are all sorts. And I was happy to see the exhibition before we started this. Of properties, and those are good, they're great, with property developers showing the different types of houses. But with property, you also have to be mindful that you can get selected properties from family and friends. There could be a garden that your father or your mother or your friend or your auntie has, and you could build on it. You could get it from the traditional ones, the real estate companies, like we said. There are company initiatives. You could be working in a company that says, you know what, we're buying 2,000 acres in Santor. If you're interested, you can sign on and you pay over 10 years and you own a property. There are traditional lands. You could be a member of a tribe that has got their property released from the government, and all of a sudden they're saying, everybody from this tribe, come for this land. And then government initiatives. Sometimes the government says there are too many people who cannot afford houses, so we're doing affordable housing schemes. I'm sure you've all heard of those schemes in the past, whether it's flats or apartments in various areas. So you always have to be on the lookout for such initiatives and not just look at the traditional way. So recommended locations for first-time buyers. We're going back to Monopoly. We can't go to Trasacco, maybe not even East Legon. So we'll start from the Kaswas of today. And those are various ones, like the Oyarifas, Agbobas, Amasamans, and the like. Unfortunately, they're on the outskirts of Accra. But it's interesting to know that back in the day, maybe about 10, 15 years ago, there were other places that were also on the outskirts of Accra, like Spintex Road, like Tema TDC. They were all on the outskirts, and they were seen as low-cost areas. But today, you go back, and they're high-cost areas. It just goes to show that what may be seen as a low-cost or low-income place today will one day be a middle income, a high income. It's interesting to note, I break a lot of houses because of my job. And you go to a place like maybe South La Estates, and you hear that it was given to government workers. Today, those lands that were given to government workers 40 years ago at maybe cheap prices are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you have to keep on with that mindset of monopoly. Where you start today could one day be the Trasacco. So maybe in 10 years' time, one of you will be giving the presentation and there will be no more Trasacco. The Kaswa you are in today, that will be the Trasacco. All right. We just tried to show a map of Accra and the various properties around Accra. You realize that they're on the outskirts. This is from Google Earth. I'm sure you're all aware of Google Earth. It's a tool that you should all use to appreciate what exists around you. When you're on the ground and driving, you can't see much. But with Google Earth, you can see the various locations that you need. We wanted to talk about cost ranges of lands and properties, but I don't think I'll dwell on this because there's an expert on that who will be talking, and he will be able to expatiate more. But I must say quickly, I saw some of the flyers, outside, and I can imagine how frightened you'll be to see $50,000 and $100,000 and 1.5 million and 200, and you wonder, when will I ever get this amount of money to buy a property? We hope by the end of tonight, you will appreciate that it's not just a traditional route, but if you have the right mindset, you'll be able to get into the property market and climb. And eventually, you will have properties worth the amounts that you are seeing today. Okay. You know, before you start buying property, you should know what you're buying. I think some of the flyers said 1-bedroom expandable. I saw terrace. I saw semi-detached, expandable, and all the like. We tried to show you some of the various properties that exist for first-time buyers. Developers, architects, engineers, contractors, they try to maximize the use of a property so that, you know, a small piece of land can do so much and people can live on it. So you normally find for beginners, you have a small plot of land and they've tried to put in so many properties on one. It's not that they don't know how to design, but they know that you don't have the kind of money that would attract a standalone building. So you also have to look out for such buildings. Standalone is quite expensive now. So you have to look out. You have to look out for houses that will be more suited to your budget. So you get houses like row houses where maybe you've got 7 houses all together. It doesn't mean that it's a prison camp. Like I keep on saying, it's a start. You get houses that are duplexes. You get, even innovatively, container homes. We all know containers are used for shipping, but there's a new trend where people use 20-footer, 40-footer containers to start their homes. And for this audience, I can imagine that you all have a fixated mindset about property. For another set of people, another group of people, some of you may be here, they think of property as even a shed or a container, and not necessarily brick and mortar. Once they get the land, they get the wooden shed, that's their property. So those are some of the kind of houses that you have to be thinking about. Once again, I put myself in your shoes, and I appreciate that it's frightening to see all these figures, all these pay 30% deposit, and pay in 12 months. I mean, you need 12 years to make 1 million Ghana cedis, and they're saying 12 months. So I thought, what hope do you have to own property? I coined an acronym for that, HOPE. You need humility. You need optimism. You need persistence. And you need enthusiasm. Buying a property, I mean, you want to buy whether a land or a house, you're going to be in debt. You don't go into debt with pride. You go with a humble heart. Optimism, in light of all these figures and options for mortgage and the like flying around, what hope is there to own a property? You have to go with optimism. Persistence, you'll be turned down so many times. You might offer to buy land, they'll turn you down. You might offer your price that you can afford, they'll turn you down. You need persistence. Dr. Otabil has preached so many times about how God gave the Israelites, the promised people, the land. But he said, you must fight. He said what? You must fight. People were promised the land. So if the promised people fought, we also have to be what? Persistent and fight. Enthusiasm. It can be daunting when your written letters that we've refused your application, we can't accommodate your offer, but you still have to have enthusiasm. So attitudes to encourage you to stay with your hope. Whenever anybody says, buy something, and like this beautiful home, $50,000, and you say, I can't afford it, immediately your mind shuts down. So I encourage you that you always ask yourself, how can I afford? and not I can't afford. The first thing I'll tell you that a lot of property people encourage is that they give you commissions for selling houses for them. 5%, 3 to 5%. If you're able to introduce somebody to a real estate developer and the person pays for the property, they'll give you 3% of the amount, only 5%. So there's more or less a rule that if you sell 20 properties, you will earn one. Immediately, it turns you into a real estate agent, right? But you make sure that you sign agreements with them. And you keep on looking. If you can't afford, you can look for people who you can afford, and then you get commission on that. Back again to the flyers. You know, you have to look beyond the paper price, terms and conditions and the like, and don't just close it and say, I can't afford, so I won't look at it again. The people who write the terms and conditions are humans just like you and I. 30%, when you see them in person, they may reduce it to 10% deposit or 5% deposit, or they'll look for ways to accommodate your proposal. There's a generation that I think some of you fall in now, the Uber mentality generation, whereby you can share. And sharing is, we've all been talking about plots, but you don't necessarily have to own a plot yourself or a full house yourself. You can share. One plot can be divided into 3, into 4. One house can be divided into 2, and 2 boys can share it so they each have enough money to move into their own unit. So you have to have that mentality to share. And I'll tell you this, real estate agents and developers and property people are always interested in numbers. So if I go alone to buy a 1-bedroom house with a low budget, it won't be attractive to them. But if 40 of you all go to a real estate developer and say, look, this is the money we have, and we want 40 1-bedroom houses, or 40 duplexes, or 40 whatever, they listen, and they're ready to bend backwards, because they're business people. So you move in groups and you share. A modular building mindset, just like the beginning, you have to assess your needs. You don't need 4 bedrooms now, you don't need 3 bedrooms. All you need is just 1 bedroom that you will expand later on. Before marriage, you have 1 room. After marriage, you add another one. Then you keep on adding. So there are lots of designs in the market that they call expandable, and you can do that at your own pace. So you have to have that mentality. Learn to play these games like Monopoly and Cash Flow Quadrant. It helps you practice how it is to be a tenant, a landlord, a business owner, buy property, sell it, collect rent. It helps you think in those lines and not just resign yourself to the reality that, hey, I can't imagine owning 4 houses in Trasaco and collecting rent. It helps. Last but not the least, you have to learn how to negotiate. You'll be surprised at what some property developers will give away for services. I know so many professionals who have got land because of the business they do, maybe lawyers, accountants, engineers, all sorts. Some people too are in companies for such a long time that they're able to get staff facilities for land. But the most interesting one is landowners and their love for cars. You can barter cars for land in Accra. Just have a nice car, you give it to the necessary or the right people, they'll take it. So you have to think about those ways and means. So I hope I can get you encouraged to think beyond the $50,000 you see here, that there are always ways and means to go about it. I wanted to add to what has been so brilliantly put outside as articles of hope, just to buttress what I'm saying. And I think the first thing you see on some of these slides are Apollonia City. They're offering commission on sale. They're going to America for a roadshow. If I were you, I'd be calling all my friends in America that, hey, Apollonia are coming. Do you want a house? And when I get 10 buyers, I tell them these 10 buyers want to buy. When they buy, give me their commission, and that's it. Companies like Emerald Properties, they are building modular houses. So even in their plans, you see they have a 1-bedroom option that you can expand, and so on and so forth. The one that is even interesting is the government and what they are doing for mass housing. So in all this, you can see that it's all about teamwork and new relationships that you have to form to encourage you to get on, stay on, and thrive within the property market. There are so many people to think about: industry professionals, lawyers, finance, security, building contractors, landowners, the like. And you realize that you have to start thinking differently, start appreciating calculations, indentures, plans, and unfortunately, you have to be friends with the dollar. Wherever you go in property in Ghana, you hear the dollar and how it rates against the Ghana cedi. I'd like to end by recommending some activities that you should get into. Some books that I'll recommend, I think you can get them later on in the PDF. And also activities like visiting Ghana Home Loans offices, where they have so many houses and real estate agents showing what they can offer people like you. As an end to this, I just want to share a very short personal story. I was once like you. I was married and I was living in Adinta, young couple, and we were inspired by a young friend to go into the bush and look for property. And I said, oh, I'm not going anywhere. However, my friend was persistent, and he inspired my mind to shift and think about going to buy a land in a bush. So we moved into an estate. It was bush because there were cows and pigs and all sorts of things around. Anyway, the estate developed, and one day we were passing a site, a small plot, not even a plot, it was a half plot that was being used as a rubbish dump. And I tried to sell that rubbish dump to people. I said, look, you can build a small house on it and the like. Nobody was interested. One day on my way to church, I just got the inspiration that build an ark. Build an ark and put it on this plot. And I told my wife excitedly, we're going to buy this house and build. I approached the developer and they said, you know, this plot is so small, we have nothing, we can't even build on it. Take it. It's a useless piece of land. I came to church. Over the weeks and months, Doc kept on preaching about so many things that encouraged me to go on with my vision. I used leftover materials, recycled materials, and the like. And I eventually built on the land. 10 years to date, that land, that plot, that derelict plot that nobody wanted is no more a bushland. It's no more a derelict land. There's no more in the bush. There are no pigs, there are no cattle, there are no land guards there. It's gained value over 40 times of, who are the mathematicians, 40% or 3,000% of the original cost. And I coined it the ark because I was inspired by the story of Noah, to build on 3 levels, a box of wood floating on water. So today, this is the ark in Ashalibuche. If I told you to buy that piece of land, 42 by 100, build 2 houses on it, and one day it will look like this, and you could sell it for so many times more than you bought it, you wouldn't believe me. You say, no, I want to go to where? Trasako. On that note, I leave you with expectations of what you have to do, not from me, but from our good Lord Jesus Christ. In Luke 14, 28-30, he said, for which of you intending to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it? Else, after he has laid the foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, this man, this woman began to build and was not able to finish. I hope you've learned a little from what I've been able to share, and I hope you'll be inspired to get into the property market. Thank you very much.
Absolutely incredible. Let's put our hands together for Mr. Cecil Abbey. Wow. You know, if you are inspired, encouraged, motivated, instructed, empowered, and confident, put your hands together for the Lord. I wrote down so many questions until I remembered that I was the MC. But I can tell you something. The ideas about commissions and the ideas about coming together were incredible. I'm sure during the question time we will explore those further. We want to move straight to our second speaker. And please, let me remind you, write down your questions, write down your points, and we'll interrogate them at the end. Our three speakers will line up here, and you can ask them all your questions. Coming up next is a man who has given his whole life to offering cost-effective solutions. Felix Amegashiti is a professional polymer process and mechanical engineer from North London University. And in 2016, 3 years ago, he established Bait Valley Investment Limited to focus on using highly innovative products for cost-saving and environmentally friendly housing solutions. Tonight, he wants to put only one key in your hand: how to build very quickly and also very cost-effectively. If these two concerns are paramount to you, put your hands together. Let's welcome Felix Amegashiti. Let's welcome him with a round of applause.
Good evening, everyone. I give reverence to God for having such a wonderful opportunity to speak to people like you. I'd like to thank Dr. and Mrs. Otabil for such a great platform that is giving us to share about affordable housing technologies. I am going to show you a short video, less than 2 minutes, about what kind of material we would need to use in building cost-effective houses. This is a house that was built in 2 days. Two working days, this house was built. And this technology we are bringing to all of us in Ghana, including all seated here, making it really affordable to us. EPS is an expandable polystyrene composite with cement. So the feel of prefabrication is no more there because you have a total cement rock fill in the building that you would be owning. Some people would sell the same expanded polystyrene, but then there is no cement composite in them. So when you hit them, you knock them, it feels as if you are living in a kind of hen's coop. But in this case, we are introducing to you a material that makes you feel that this is a real cement composite. We have about 80% of cement in this composite with sand, and then the expanded polystyrene. The origin has been 70 years ago when Canada started with this technology. And they've built on it, and the Chinese took over about 45 years ago, and now it has become what China would use because of the properties that it has. So it's all over the world. Germany is producing expandable polystyrene cement sandwich panels. If you go to US, if you go to Canada, they are all doing that. Today, we have brought it to our doorstep. Ghana now have a feel of that, a breakthrough solution in affordable housing. I think and believe that my brother Cecil has spoken a lot about the fundamentals of what we need to start life. Basically, I believe that cost-effective and durability in our properties, saving time, is key. If you imagine building your house in 2 weeks, meaning that if you go to even a lender to borrow money to build a house, by the time you are 2 weeks down the line, you own your own house, which makes it easier for repayment, instead of waiting to start living in a house after 6 months or even a year. This technology helps you save between 30 to 40% of building your conventional houses. 30 to 40%, meaning that if you have a 50,000 house being priced, you could easily buy the same house for 30,000. So affordability becomes really key, and time effective also in the delivery of these houses. This material is fireproof, it's waterproof, it's soundproof, because I believe that if you build in a studio, what you normally would use is this polystyrene as your base. And we are using part of this same polystyrene in mixing the composite cement to build or to make these boards. It is eco-friendly as well, meaning that there is no harmful substance in this material, no harmful substance at all, as compared to other materials that you would use with a lot of harmful materials. The walls, as you have seen, like I said, it was built in 2 days. The walls, as you've seen, can be slated for various uses. If you want to plumb through it, you can just cut the wall through the wall, and then you can do your plumbing work. If you want to pass your electrical cables, it's so easy to pass it through the walls as well. Waterproof. If you have a waterlogged area, you can easily put these houses together in a waterlog without having the water seeping through the walls, because there is this polymer composite in the board that does not allow you or allow water to flow up. It is very light, And so going up story, you could go too many story without having a stronger base, making your foundation also cheaper because you don't have to put in so many iron rods during the foundation stage. These boards comes in various sizes. What you saw earlier was a 100 mm size of board, which is roughly 4 inches block. We do some of them in 6 inches, we do some of them in 5 inches, which allows you to determine what size of board and thicknesses that you are going to use. The board comes in bigger sizes. I would demonstrate to you as we go along pictures of properties that we have built here in Ghana and how long it took us to build those ones. The board comes in the size of about 610 cm by 2,400 cm. So it's a real big board that you put together to get your house built. The good news about this is that you personally can also get involved in the building of it. We do not need very special artisans to work on it, especially when you are putting up the superstructure. You get involved in building it, which further reduces your own price of paying workers into doing the job. So it makes it really affordable, cheaper, faster to get this thing done. We have gone further to bring to you also what we call a soil stabilizer. A soil stabilizer is a chemical that you can use in making your foundations. Instead of using cement, stones, water, you would just use this chemical over your normal laterite that you put in your foundation. This chemical goes on it and it's as strong or even stronger than using the cement, bringing your cost down to up to 50%. You will be saving on that. This is also another area of making your houses even more cost effective. We will show you a few buildings that we've done so far. The Ministry of Education gave us the opportunity to sample one of their schools, which we built in Enyinim. And it took us, from beginning to the end, it took us 6 weeks to complete a kindergarten three classroom block in 6 weeks. So this is a sample of what the EPS cement sandwich could do. And this has reduced the cost for Ghana Education Service and the Ministry of Education by 40%. We further went on to build another living project in Chebi, where we've done a single story, and then we've also done a 2-story up. These are processes of this is the finished product of what was done. And this project also took less than 3 months to do a 3-story up. 3-story. Otherwise, I know the architect is here, you would need between 21 days to 29 days to cure your first floor before you are able to go up and before you are able to go up. So by the time you are done with a building like this, you should be spending nothing less than 6 months to a year. We also did, whilst we did a story, we did another one which is a 1 and a 2 bedroom. So a 1 bedroom expandable to 2, which is for the beginners, and also a 2 bedroom that is not expandable. So you have, on this platform, as you can see, we designed it such that you can build your 1 bedroom and then you can expand it to 2 bedroom. And these are some of the visuals of what was achieved. And these are the finishing that we got from this. This building took us less than 1 month to complete. It took us 3 days to put the superstructure together before roofing. We used the same material for the roofing, making it extremely cheaper because, one, the same material, when you use it to build, it does not allow heating into the building because of the insulation properties that it's got. The same way, it does not allow, if you chill your room with air conditioning, it does not allow the cold to go out because of the properties that the wall has. So it saves and preserves a lot of energy. That is why it is now mandatory that any house you are putting up in China today, you must put in those EPS polystyrene. It has taken a long time for it to come into Africa. Today, it's only South Africa who have this technology and have started. And the next country is Ghana, who have also brought this to the fold. Pricing. We are able to build a 1-bedroom house expandable to 2-bedroom for $17,500 US. We are able to build a 2-bedroom for $22,500 US, for $22,750. We are able to build a 3-bedroom for $28,000 US. And amazingly, we can build a 4-bedroom house for $48,000 to $49,000 US. We challenge you that these are the fastest, the easiest, the more affordable way of starting our lives. Some of us may choose to go into using the traditional way of building, but this is a point to start. And I will encourage all of us. I believe that is going to be a game changer to the building industry across this country. I will show you a very brief video about another technology that have come to the fold, of which you can build up to 8-story building without no iron rods, without no stones, without no steel, no cement, and you can go up to 8-story, making it even cheaper than what we have before. I will give you 2 minutes of my time again to see this video. Interestingly, this house is a 4-bedroom story. It was built or put together before. The gaps that you see between the walls are gaps that will be filled with mortar, so to say. But it's a special chemical that bonds it together using fiber. And this superstructure was built in one day. It's a very interesting technology. This has been a technology China has used in the last 21 years. They have refused to export this technology to any part of the world until last year, when they decided to sell out 10 franchises to 10 countries across the world. And I believe that God is doing something special with his children. The heart that Doctor has for this church is the same thing that Reverend Steve Mensa has for CEM. This is how all of this began. And all this technology have come into play, and now it is being discussed and open to all of us. A house like that, complete, would cost you less than $50,000 US. A story building to that extent would cost you less than $50,000 US. And your house can be handed to you within 1 month. And this material can go up to 8-story without any iron rods, no cement, no stones, no water on site, and you can go up to 8-story high. We are grateful to God that he has brought this into Ghana, and Ghana is the only country in the whole of Africa that would see this technology start. I believe that it is not by coincidence that all our general overseers are geared to making sure that we have a good sleeping place and a cheaper way of building our asset base. We are very grateful to them, because this whole initiative of me finding this kind of technology is through the same PS that God has put in the heart of Reverend Steve Mensa, that by year 2020, every young man, every young woman in CEM must own at least a piece of land. And this was 7 years ago. And 6 years later, this is where we have gotten to. So it is not difficult, as our brothers still have shared with us, to get a piece of land, to secure it. And it's also becoming more even easier to build and to own your own house. I shared earlier that there is this chemical also that is brought to fold, which is called a polymer chemical. It is used to solidify soils. So even in your compound, if you don't have to pave the compound, you can use this same chemical, and it will cost you about 1/10 of what you would have used paving your house. This will stop you from erosion. It will stop you from dust during the dry season. It will stop you from mud in your house during the wet season. And there will be no erosion, no weeds growing in your house, and you have a solid paving in your house for at least 1/10 of how much you would have paid. 10%. So if it costs you 10,000 Ghana cedis to pave your house, this time around it's going to cost you 1,000 cedis to pave your house. Interestingly, you can do it by yourself. All you need to do is to use a pickaxe, pick the house nicely, get a watering can, put a chemical in that watering can, water it all over, get a ramping machine, ramp it all over, and your house is paved. I guess it's becoming very easy for us today, knowing that buying or building our houses have become even more easier and more affordable, and is doable. Lastly, I would like to say that creating this whole opportunity of building houses cheaper and affordable is going to be a unifying thing that we are going to do. I believe that Reverend Albert Okran would be speaking to either the men's ministry or other organization within the church to partner with us to be able to help and also make sure that in all of these things, there is money-making venture in all of it. We are going to be training people in how to use these affordable housing techniques. We are not going to bring in expatriates and foreigners to do this. We are going to do it all by ourselves. We are going to spend time and train people. It would not take you more than a month to learn how to build your own house. And after building that, you could then start building for others. I will have the opportunity, I believe, to share even more to you in the very near future where we would all work together. I thank you all.
Thank you so much. Let's put our hands together for Felix Amegachiti. That house is getting closer and closer and closer and closer. Wow. On behalf of Dr. and Mrs. Otabil, I want to say a big thank you to you for that input. I would like to just remind all of us that Bait Valley Limited has a stand outside. You can visit their stand after the service. Also from the office of Mrs. Otabil to assure you that next week we will make the opportunity available for them to be back again, so that if you didn't see them today, you will see them next week, so that maybe you hadn't heard what they have to offer. So now that you have heard, you want to be sure that it will be possible for you as well. So thank you so much, sir. And thank you, Mr. Abe, for that first presentation. Now, having heard about how to select property and also seeing options for doing it either alone or with others in a cost-effective way, let's bring this to a climax by talking about how do we find the money. Our final speaker for tonight, Kojo Adokufo, is the executive director of GHL Bank, formerly Ghana Home Loans. In 2006, he teamed up with 2 colleagues and a panel of international financial institutions to launch Ghana Home Loans, a specialist mortgage finance company. 2 years ago, the company was given a universal bank license as GHL Bank. Today, his mission is very simple. How do you pay for the house? If you are interested in issues like mortgage as a replacement for rent, so you own the house and pay for it instead of giving money to the landlord and all other things in between, then let your applause be big as we welcome Kojo Adokufo. Let's put our hands together as he comes.
Good evening, everybody. I'd first like to join my 2 colleagues in extending my gratitude to Dr. and Mrs. Otabil for this opportunity to speak to you about financing options when it comes to home ownership. It's been our passion for the past 13 or so years, ever since we started Ghana Home Loans, to make sure that each and every Ghanaian who has home ownership as an aspiration is able to achieve it. And I never pass up an opportunity to speak to gatherings such as this, especially people who are just about to start, to share ideas, give advice, so they don't make the kind of mistakes some of us made earlier on. If you don't remember anything I'm going to say tonight, remember these 3 things. 1, it's possible. And I know it because I've seen people come to us and become homeowners, and they are no different from any of us in this room. So it's possible. The pass rate is about 94%. If you're going to write an exam and you're told 94% of the people pass, I think you kind of fancy your chances. And by that, what I mean is, if you look at all the business we've done, some 6% of the business has given us problems where we've had to go into foreclosure and take the property back. But 94% of the people have gone on to become homeowners, some twice, 3 times over. So it's possible, the pass rate is high, and you stand a very good chance. And what I'm about to share with you this evening is normally a 2-day seminar, but I compressed it into 20 minutes, and I hope I do a good job of it. Thankfully, my 2 speakers that have gone before have made it a lot easier by laying the good foundation. So with that, I'd like to get into the topic of financing your home how to own a house and the financing options available to you. So you've decided to own a house, and the question is, how do you go about it? To buy or not to buy? Not more often than not, when you get into these conversations, you get people who say, well, I don't want to own a house. I'm happy to rent. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, a lot of people go through life as tenants. So we don't start this conversation pretending that it's mandatory to own. But there are benefits of home ownership, and I'd like to go through some of them. You have them behind us. If you decide you want to rent, what that means is essentially you don't have to find the large commitment or capital upfront to make the purchase. Sorry. So I'm fighting with technology here. Right. So if you decide you want to rent, you have the flexibility, because what that means is that anytime you want to move, the house doesn't belong to you. You just pack your bag and baggage and move on. Whereas as a homeowner, once you've made that capital commitment, you can't just move away. You've taken a mortgage, you've moved into the house. If you decide you don't like the location, you don't like the build, you're effectively stuck with it. So there are benefits on both sides, owning versus renting. But the most important difference is that as an owner, especially if you took financing to acquire it, yes, you make the monthly commitments, you make the monthly payments, but whatever you put towards that house is an investment you've made in your property. So you own it. And that's a long-term asset you are taking, you're acquiring. So what are the financing options available to you? If you see a house that you're interested in buying, essentially you can use your personal assets. Some people have savings, some have relatives and parents who give them money, or some people liquidate other assets to acquire. So you can use your own personal funds to acquire that property. Or you can take a loan, a short-term loan. And before mortgage finance became mainstream in Ghana, a lot of people used to do that. Go to a microfinance or other financial institution and take a short-term loan. The problem with that is the installments tend to be relatively higher, but you can do that. The third option is to do vendor financing. Go to the person who's selling the house and negotiate a purchase plan with them. So maybe over 3-4 years, you make installments and the house becomes yours. So you're paying them directly. The only issue you run into there is that if the person disappears during your payment plan, you don't have a fallback option. And if any of you have tried doing that, I'm sure you have experiences you can share. But title doesn't transfer until you fully paid for the house. And if anything were to happen to the person, you really struggle to get your money back. So we recommend the fourth, if you're going to go the route of financing, and that's to take a mortgage, which is how it's traditionally done in most parts of the world. So what's a mortgage? What is this mortgage everybody keeps talking about? Essentially, it's a loan. I mean, it's just a fancy word for a loan you use to buy a house. And the reason why it's structured a certain way is that it's normally a substantial amount. You've heard 50,000, 60,000, 70,000. So we are talking big money here. And so you can't approach it the way you would approach other smaller transactions that you might undertake. But essentially, it's a loan. It has a payment plan. You're given an interest rate. You know how much you're going to borrow. You're sometimes required to make a down payment. And if you don't pay, we get into a bit of a conversation about how to remedy the situation. But it's, for all intents and purposes, it's a loan. The other key feature which makes it unique is that normally when you think of a loan, you think of collateral. So if I ask you to borrow 50,000, the first question you ask is, well, I don't have any collateral. The way a mortgage is structured, the house itself becomes the collateral. So you start off with zero, you take a loan, you buy the house, and the house becomes the collateral. And that's how it's structured. The other terms and conditions like taking insurance and other requirements that the lender will impose on you. But the simplest way to think about it is a loan you're going to take to buy a house, and then you pay back over 15, 20, 25 years. Most people do it well before then. Most people, once you get the loan and you get into the rhythm of monthly payments, you find people tend to prepay before even year 10. Not because they have extra cash, but because they realize that it becomes your priority number one. Every month when you get paid, you have to take care of the mortgage, and then you go on to do other things. And once you focus on it like that, you realize before you know it, it's paid off. There have been instances where people take the loan, buy the property, and realize because they live in it, and essentially it's yours. I mean, it's your house. People try to sell it or modify it without the bank's permission. That's a no-no. You can't do that. That's the only condition that is very rigorously enforced. That if you want to do any transaction or anything with a house that has been financed for you, you just need to seek permission. Otherwise, for all intents and purposes, it's yours to live in and enjoy. There are many types of mortgages, as you'd expect. There's the typical one, which is the purchase mortgage, the one that allows you to buy a house. We call it the first-time buyer. But in addition to that, there's the buy-to-let. Once you bought the first house, if you want to buy a second house, or a third, or a fourth, it's called buy-to-let. Essentially, you take a loan, you buy the property, you try to get a tenant to move in, the tenant makes the payment to you, you make the payment to the financial institution. And then there are other types. There's a land purchase, which allows you to buy land. There's a construction, which allows you to build. There's equity release. Once you've bought the property and you live in it, you can actually release equity or use the property once again to raise money to invest in your business. So there are various flavors of the mortgage product. But as I said before, always think of it as a loan. That's all it is. It's just a loan that you've taken to buy a house. And I keep stressing this because all kinds of myths have emerged around what a mortgage is, and a lot of people some of whom have never taken one before, have very strong views when it comes to it. So I normally take great pains to explain that just think of it as a loan. Once you make the payments every month, you're fine, and the house is yours. That's the simplest way to think about it. There are pros and cons to the mortgage. And again, we tend to be very honest about it. It is not it's not easy. It's a commitment that you're making. Now, as I said earlier, the amount is a substantial amount you're taking out to buy this house. You really need to understand that. And the reason why I'm saying this is you can't take a mortgage, commit yourself to make monthly installments, and then go off to make all kinds of spontaneous or unplanned expenditure, which then makes it impossible for you to make your monthly payments. When you think of other types of loans you take, normally it's a year or two, maximum 3. Maybe for a car loan, you're looking at about 5 years. With this structure, you're going out 10, 15 years if you go with a full term. So for 10, 15 years of your life, you know that every month you're going to make a certain installment. The good news is it's giving you certainty. In the beginning, it's a bit difficult. let's say you take a mortgage of, say, to buy the 50,000 house we looked at earlier, and the monthly installments are somewhere in the region of $400, $500. Initially, it takes a bit of adjusting because for the first time in your life, you're having to write that check every month. But after a while, you get used to it. The good news is for that, and as time passes, wherever it is you're doing, wherever you work, hopefully your income is going up and up. Other businesses are coming into your life. So before you know it, what used to be quite difficult to pay on a monthly basis becomes more and more manageable. And you find that by year 10, if you haven't paid it off, it's a very, I don't say insignificant, but it's a very standard part of your expenditure on a monthly basis. Now you can contrast that with the various alternatives which we talked about earlier, renting or building yourself. Now if you're building yourself, what that means is that you need to find money to start, foundation, and on an incremental basis, as and when you mobilize funds, you go up. Even if you're using the new technology we saw earlier, you still need to have a lump sum to do that construction, and that's not always easy to mobilize. I'd like to share some common myths that with time have emerged about the mortgage product. And these have become mainstream because most people don't really see mortgages as the key or the main option when it comes to home ownership. And I have some of them behind us. So you have people saying things like, oh, when you take a mortgage, the tenor is so long, you'll never finish paying it. I mean, you pay, you die and your children will take over and they'll pay. It's not true. It's simply not true. It's not the case that it's intergenerational. You start paying, then your children take over and your grandchildren. That's not the case at all. The reality is that you're given a long tenor to make the monthly installments manageable. The longer the tenor, the longer the loan is spread out, the smaller the monthly installments are. But if you want to pay it sooner, if you want to compress it, it's possible. The example I always give is, it's just like you're going to write an exam and you've been given 5 hours and you say, oh, time is too long. You don't have to sit there for the entire 5 hours. If you want to leave after an hour, you're welcome to do so. So in the same way, if you are given 15 years to pay, it's because we want to make it affordable. We want to make the monthly installments manageable. But people say that. They say, oh, mortgage, when you take it, you pay, your children will come. It's not true. You have other misconceptions that is mortgage is for the rich. As for this one, the people who live outside, the abroche people, the elite. It's not true. Simply not the case. The rich hardly borrow. In fact, over 90% of the people who we do business with are regular salary earners. They come, we explain the process to them, they sign up. Before you know it, they've paid off, they are applying for the second loan. So don't think of it as something which is for some group of people sitting somewhere. It's for those of us in this room. It's rarely something within your reach. What you do need, though, is a lot of planning. A lot of planning so that you know what you can afford. Planning and expectation management. I mean, I think my two colleagues mentioned you don't start off at Trasaco. You start off somewhere and work your way up. That's why it's called the property ladder. Nobody climbing a ladder goes to the top. You normally start from the bottom and make your way from there. There's also, unfortunately, the notion that, notwithstanding everything I've said, that regardless of your income, you should be able to acquire a home. I tend to be honest about it. The reality is that it's not 100%. It's not the case that everybody, even if, you earn 50 cedis, you can buy a house. That's just not realistic. But what is true, though, is that a lot more people than you would think qualify. And regardless of your income, if you approach it the right way, if you get the right advice, if you plan properly, you'll find that there's a parcel of land you can afford. On that, there's a house you can buy, and then you trade up, like the monopoly example that was given earlier. So it's all about realizing where you start, given your circumstances, and working your way from there. But unfortunately, some of these myths have found their way into main folklore, and it just discourages a lot of people. And before you know it, they've gone on to either get themselves into some land purchase transaction they don't understand, or they've started building a house using resources. And I love the quotation Cecil ended with. A lot of people start construction, they don't even know where the money is going to come from, and they get stuck. The right way to do it is either you've got the funds available, or approach a mortgage finance house, work through the numbers, see what your salary can help you build, and take a home construction loan so that you build right from there. So there are many myths which, some of them I've put behind me, which have been doing the rounds, and we spend a lot of time through our education programs to educate people that a lot of what you hear is just not the case. If you really want to own a home, if you really think it's your ambition and you deserve it, you plan, you get advice, you talk to institutions such as Ghana Home Loans, and we'll work with you to craft something which is suited to your income bracket, and you can work your way from there. Now, I'd like us to look at a couple of case studies. You can put it up. Okay. Now, the property behind me here is actually one that we financed. And you can see from the numbers that, again, I'm sure there are some people sitting here thinking, wow, I don't earn this amount, and monthly repayments of $2,500, it all seems a lot. It comes back to the earlier conversation we're having, that, again, it's not universal, it's not for everybody, but if you can't afford this one, there are others you can afford. This one is $250, it's about 50,000 US. There are others that are 30,000, 20,000, and if this isn't your budget, we'll find one that's in your budget. But the beauty is, to the extent that you can make payments on that one, at some point you can come back to us and trade up. And I think that's a very key lesson that I'd like to share, which is, don't worry about where you start. Don't worry about the first property you buy. To the extent that you service the mortgage, to the extent that you prove to us that you are good for the facility, you can come back in 2, 3, 4 years, buy a bigger one, and a bigger one, and before you know it, you are buying that dream home. The difficulty we often have is when people want to buy the dream home right from the very beginning. They come out of school, within 3, 4 years, they are buying the house that they want to retire in, and you're saying to them, well, your income doesn't qualify you for the house I just showed. Why don't you buy a 1-bedroom and then go from there? Then they'll say, no, when I have kids, I want each of them to have their own bedroom, and that makes 3. And then when my mom comes to visit, she should have a bedroom, so that's 4. So can I have a 5-bedroom house? And the income is just not there. So and because of that, they don't start at all. And I think that's the worst possible mistake you can make, to think that because you can't buy the 5-bedroom house, you shouldn't start at all. Start small and work your way up the property ladder. There's another case study I want to share. So there's where you don't make any down payment at all. Because the difficulty most people have is when they see the numbers, and somehow they believe they can manage the monthly installments, but they don't have the lump sum to start with. And we've come up with a product which allows you to do just that, to borrow the full amount that you need to buy the house. It's a no down payment or 0% deposit mortgage, which means you just go straight into monthly payments. Because ordinarily, you'd need to find maybe 10, 15, 20% of the house price as down payment. This one makes it possible for you to go straight in, no down payment, and you just make the monthly installments. The salary, the income levels that you see on the board are either for the individual or for a couple, husband and wife or siblings. So again, when you think about these things, think in terms of partnerships, combinations. Thank you. I think I've used up my time. Wow. So think of possibilities in terms of combinations and people you can work with to acquire the home. Okay. There are a couple of other slides I want to share, but my time is up. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have afterwards. Thank you.
Let's put our hands together for. So you have the full cocktail. It's absolutely amazing. We know now how to select property based on where we are on the ladder. We know also, very importantly, how to locate cost-effective options. And then finally, where to go if you're looking for the money. Please, if you have a question, kindly line up in the left or in the right aisles, and our speakers will climb onto the stage so we can have them all in view. I will move slightly to my left, or to your, better still, to your left and my right. So line up in the aisles if you have a question. Shall we have our three speakers up front here? Let's put our hands together as they come. Ask them very difficult questions, especially as relates to what they shared, so they can throw more light on them. Don't feel shy. If you have a question, just line up in the aisles. Don't wait for somebody to start, and then when you see the last two, then 10 more people come up. All right, 1, 2, 3.
Hello.
Your first name and then your question, please.
Hello.
And you can help us by your first name, and then you can also tell us who the question is going to, and then you can. And just for the benefit of all of us, this is the first speaker is Mr. Abe, second speaker is Mr. Megashiti, and the third speaker is Mr. Adokufo. So you can say first speaker, second speaker, third speaker. It's all fine.
Okay. My first question goes to. Sorry, my name is Joanna.
Joanna,
and
okay.
My first question goes to Mr. Amegashi from Bayes. I wanted to find out what is the shelf life of the new technology, since chemicals have expiration dates, and if you are building for long term and you are using such chemicals to bond your housing, what's the shelf life of it?
Thank you very much.
And my second question and last question goes to Mr. Adokufo from GHL. Your rates for the mortgages, on what basis? Is it still traditional? Because I'm much more interested in the eco-friendly and the new technologies. What are the calculations for the eco-friendly options, like the container housing and the style, the EPL? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very nice question. Next person, please.
My name is Nina.
Lena, okay.
Yes. My question is there any plan for technology transfer for the new structure, the EPS, so that our brothers and sisters who are working in the cement factory may not lose their jobs? My second question is already asked. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the third question.
Good evening. My name is Blaise.
I need some volume on that microphone, please, if you can assist me. Thank you.
Right. Good evening. My name is Blaise. My question is to. My name is Blaise. My question is to Mr. Adokufo. I've not had the opportunity to take a mortgage yet, But what I've realized is that looks like most of the mortgages are front-loading, meaning when you take the mortgage, the repayment looks like you tend to pay more upfront than when, I stand to be corrected, but that I've seen from colleagues who have taken it. What's the consideration? Secondly, with regards to equity release, which is maybe I want to leverage on a property I have to raise financing for something else. What are the considerations? What would I have to bring to be able to do that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go. We'll do two more, and then we will break for answers. You can join us. You can join us.
Thank you very much. I'm Francis, and please, my question is to the second speaker. I would like to know that EPS technology doesn't include the foundation of the house, and the prices you quoted for the various houses doesn't include the foundation. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Pause. Let me do Coach on my right, and then I'll come back to you, Ma'am. Coach, yes, sir.
Yeah. May I know from Mr. Amigachi whether bidding that is built in 2 days is durable? It can stand the test. Because normally we know that when you are bidding, it takes some time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You would pause, and then let me do these two, and then we'll come to the answers. Just take a seat there. I'll come back to you, sir. Let me do these two, and then we'll take the answers, and then we'll come back to the next batch. Yes, Ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Florence.
Flora.
Florence.
Florence, okay.
Yes. Please, my question is to the second speaker, Mr. Amagashi. Please, I want to find out if you have already started building with the traditional, conventional materials. You have already started, maybe you're building storage, so you have the first floor with the traditional material. Can you continue with the EPS technology materials, please?
Thank you very much. Very interesting question. Final question for this round.
My name is Jojo. My question is to Mr. Abe. Looking at the property market as it is right now, you mentioned a couple of areas that you think are good for beginners, but the point is to build for the future. So what areas do you think would be good going forward in terms of land that you buy appreciating in value?
Thank you very much. For the next batch, you will hold on and we'll take the answers to these questions, and then we'll come back to you. All right, let's start with Joanna, whose first question goes to Felix. Felix, briefly, what's the response to the question of shelf life of new technology and the long-term viability?
Lifespan is between 75 to 100 years. And the reason being is that the bonding material for this composite is made of fiber and magnesium chloride. Fiber, even if you have a traditional house and you have cracks in them and you want to mend these cracks, the best thing to use is to use fiber in bonding it. And this is what is used to bond the entire house that you live in. So it gives it even a more extended quality than what the traditional have. Number two, iron rods, obviously, because of contraction and expansion, would eventually crack the wall. That's why if we go back to our parents' home, you could see a lot of cracks in them, and this is because of the expansion that this iron rod has. And this is a case that we are not introducing iron rods in this kind of building. So it doesn't actually affect the cracks and the breaks that you would have. So I believe that the 75 to 100 years is a good year that these material could last.
Right. Will that be the answer to the question asked by Coach in the end about durability of a build? Okay, thank you very much. So, Coach, your question has been answered. Let me go quickly to Mr. Adokufo. 12.5% rate that we use for your simulation, is it traditional, and does it apply to eco-friendly solutions?
Yes, it does. I mean, the cost of the money doesn't really have anything to do with the type of material that has been used to build the structure. So what we are offering you is a facility, it's a loan to buy a house. Now, whether it's built with bricks, cement, or anything different, it's not a consideration. There are mortgages that encourage what we call green technology, but that's not available to us here in Ghana yet.
Let me stay with you for a minute, and then speak to the question of Blaze, who's asking that it will seem that the amount you pay up front is higher and there's a reducing balance, and also about equity release. If you want to release funds, what are the options?
Actually, the way it's structured, you pay the same amount right throughout. So the amount you pay in the beginning is the same as the amount you pay at the end. What is true, though, is that for each installment, the portion that goes to reduce your principal and what goes to interest differ. So maybe that's what they're alluding to, that the earlier payments are more interest, less principal, and as you go along, you get more of your principal being reduced by the payments. I don't know if that makes any sense, but what that means is that it will appear that you can pay for 2-3 years and your principal balance hasn't reduced that much. And that's only because you pay the interest first before you pay the principal. But otherwise, the monthly installment itself remains the same throughout. The equity release product is one that allows you to use your house to raise funding, sometimes quite substantial, to do whatever that you wish to do, to buy a new property or support your business or do whatever. And the key thing is that you must have title to that house, and it must be good title. When we do a search, we must see your name, and you must have verifiable income. If you meet these two conditions, we are good to have a conversation. The other issues such as credit background and all of that, but the key two ones: do you have title to the property you have given us? And two, do you have verifiable income that can support the loan?
Thank you very much. Projection, please put up the aerial map in Mr. Abe's presentation while I ask this question to Mr. Megashiti, and then when I come back, I'll be asking about the locations that are likely to last for a long time. But let me go to Mr. Felix Megashiti. The question from Francis is that the prices you give, does it include the foundation, the EPS costing that you did? Did it include the foundation of the property?
Yes, it does include the foundation. Okay. The total finished of the house, including tiling and everything.
Fantastic. And then
what it doesn't include is the land.
That's a straight answer. So buy your land, he builds. Florence is saying, what if she hadn't met you, so she has built with traditional and she's at a point and now she's been converted? Can she continue with the material?
If you have to do an extension, you want to add a bedroom to it, yes, you can easily do that by adding another bedroom to a one-bedroom house. But if you are halfway through, then it's difficult. It's like you started with iron rods and we can't continue with EPS.
All right. Jojo asked the question that Cecil, this is a heat map that you showed earlier on. His concern is that you said you can buy land in any of these areas because they are more cost effective today. But using your skill, can you project and say some of these areas could possibly be high value in the near future?
Buying land is not a straightforward activity. I'll give you a scenario. There are a lot of farmlands. Let's take a place like Santor. It was formerly...
Where's Santor?
Santor is towards Ashali Boche, Legon School Farms, and it links in with the farms. There are a lot of farmlands that have now been released for residential purposes. That's the first place you get the most cost-effective land. If you look at a more inner city place like Trade Fair, formerly it wasn't an expensive place to buy land. There were, like I said, a lot of pigs around, a lot of cattle, but then it was released quite recently and now it's gained in value. I've worked for people and gone to their lands in places where I don't even have the hope that it'll ever be a good place to live. But many years later, it turns out good. So for beginners, you always have to look at the virgin lands. That is your best bet. Unfortunately, a virgin land will have laterite roads. It may not have gutters. It may not be well demarcated. They might even sell the land to you from under a tree. You know, that's the best way to be cost effective in looking for land. If you're looking for a more organized piece of land that is built up, that is serviced, you can be assured that it will also cost a bit more because the developer has put some more money in it. So that's why in some of our slides we said that encourage yourselves to go into the bush. First, you start with Google Earth, and look at the open patches available, scout there on the ground, and ask who owns the land, and you take it from there. That's the best advice I can give you. It's risky, but that's your best bet for the cheapest land you can get now that will gain value in time to come.
Final question, Mr. Megashiti, is from Lina, who's concerned not about herself, but about those who are building or those who are in traditional cement business. She thinks you will put them out of business.
Well, I believe that we have close to 2 million houses deficit in this country. And I believe that this is why we have to even have a better, cost-effective, and a faster way of building houses. The gap is so wide that we need more people to join us.
Right.
Even the women are supposed to come along, because in this technology, they would find what they can also do as contractors or as artisans to these projects. So there will be no job loss. I believe that we will create more jobs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's have the next batch of questioners lining up, and this will be the last batch. If you've asked a question already, I would prefer to give the chance to those who haven't asked at all.
My name is Joshua.
No, take your time. Take your time. I want to see clearly before I... Okay. I'll start with you, Joshua. Right.
Yeah, my name is Joshua. I would like to ask the question about you talked about building a two-story building almost 1 month, and I was a bit concerned about longevity, the longevity of the building.
All right.
And I would like to ask how it could
how long it could
last it could long, and I would also like to ask. You talked about locating the land, and I would like to ask, what do you do about land guards and all those people who come when you are trying to locate an area for building?
Thank you very much. Joshua, you're interested in longevity. It's been answered already. I don't know whether Cecil's remit includes land guards, but I would attempt to get his mind on it. Thank you very much, Joshua. Let me go to next person here. Yes.
David, my name is Vincent.
Vincent, okay.
My question is to Mr. Yamagashi.
Right.
The cost of the buildings, are the electrical fittings included?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Felix, I think you must bring your cost sheet so that all questions relating to cost, when I come to you, you put all questions together relating to cost so that people can be assured that it is the electrical fittings, it is the windows, it is the door, everything, so that people don't ask about cost issues to Felix again. Next person, please. Yes.
Well, I'm Kofi Ajiman.
Kofi Ajiman, okay.
Yeah. And I want to find out between speaker 2 and speaker 3.
Okay.
Because speaker 2 spoke about something like a prefab.
Right.
Now, has the two people spoken well to allow speaker 3's company to give finance to the prefab or the new technology?
Right.
Because I know from other places, financial institutions are not giving loans to prefab development.
Thank you, Kofi.
And the next question is to Speaker 2, again, about the content of the material in relation to our type of soils. We have here most clay soils. We have lots of sulfites in the soil, and I know you've spoken about the waterlogged areas, but then, yeah, well, and the polystyrene in the product.
You made a point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next person, please.
I'm James.
Yes. Go ahead, any of you, yes.
Okay, my name is Etonam. Please, my question goes to Mr. Amegashiti and Adokufo. Mr. Amegashiti mentioned that the cost of 2-bedroom is $23,000, whilst Mr. Adokufo mentioned $250,000. That's a big difference.
It's two different facilities.
I want to know whether they are going to collaborate so that all of us can get a building at a cheaper cost. Thank you. Right.
Thank you very much. I'll answer that question.
My name is James Kwampepra.
James, okay.
I have two questions. One goes to the first speaker, Mr. Abi.
Please don't add up to the queue. This is the last batch. Yes.
Now my question goes to the first speaker, Mr. Abi.
James, yes.
We have numerous estate developers. When you open television, radios, you hear from them, come buy land, we give you blocks, cement, a whole lot. I have a colleague who has gone through this process. I mean, for estate developers to acquire a piece of plot, but he didn't go through. All the money that he paid went, futile. So what are the process can one pass through to know the rare and actual and genuine estate developer? So at the end of the day, you wouldn't go and throw your money elsewhere. They will tell you, go to court. My last question has to do with the attitude that you said, if one wants to acquire land, the person has to mobilize. That is hope, optimistic. How do they call it?
Persistence.
Encouragement, persistence.
Yes.
So somebody who has tried with all this attitude to acquire a piece of land, and the person has been, defrauded. What attitude must the person, embrace again in order to acquire a piece of plot?
Thank you. Thank you very much. James, you made my day with that question. Let me come to you, madam.
Hi, I'm Marianne.
Marianne, okay.
Yes, my question goes to Speaker 2. Yes, when we saw the pictures you shown, we didn't see pictures of curved buildings. Like, do your materials support curves? Everything was straight.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's quickly do the last three. Yes, sir.
Okay. My question goes to the third speaker. Please, if I'm not
your first name?
Michael.
Michael.
Yeah. If I'm not a salary earner, but probably I can manage to raise money from my parents abroad or something, what would you advise? And secondly, I want to ask if I can rent out the house I bought with a loan and with your system. Can I rent it out and use it to service the loan that I used to? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
To the second speaker.
Let's give a chance to. We have our time is up, so let's do this one and then last one.
Yeah, I'm James.
James, thank you.
And my question is going to the second speaker.
Right.
Mine is, you see, in Ghana here.
Let's have a short question so that we can.
Yes. We are kind of used to taking our time in constructing the building up to completion. You get it. And looking at the kind of materials you were showing us, is it any way, if it is your company that we are supposed to contract to help us do the building, is it possible we can pay the foreman or whoever to help us to do the construction? The payment will be done to the person, and then we take our time to buy the materials. As and when we get the money, we buy in bits, construct wherever it is, we leave it there. When we get another money again, we can continue like that till we get our full completion of building.
Thank you very much, James. And last question. Last question, sir.
My name is Felix. I want to know the processes you need to go through when you want to register a land.
And who's that question addressed to?
I think Mr. Cecil can answer that. And then the relevant questions you need to ask when you are buying a land for the first time.
Thank you very much. Okay. Projection, please notify room 2 that we will finish question time at exactly 8:30. So within the last 6 minutes, I'm going to lump the questions together and let's give them straight answers. So projection, we go for our offering at exactly 8:30. Thank you very much. All right, let's do, Joshua, the question about longevity was answered earlier on. So, Felix, Vincent wants to know, is electrical covered in the cost, yes or no? Electrical?
Yes.
Okay, so electrical fittings are covered in your cost. Kofi Ajima wants to know, Kojo, do you finance prefabricated houses?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. Felix, Kofi wants to know, does your material deal with sulfide in clay soil? Does it do well in clay soil with sulfide in it?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. Etonam is asking the two of you. You put up a house, 2-bedroom, 250. You put up a house, 2-bedroom, 23,000. I presume that is because they are different companies and different prices.
Yeah, and I think different currencies as well. What we showed there was cedis.
All right, thank you. James is concerned about estate developers and the safe process of knowing. I know that question is being answered in the advanced session, but just a tip or two about how to deal with estate developers. Which ones are the real ones?
James,
and he says, if you have used HOPE, all the HOP, and you have been defrauded, what do you do?
James, in one of our presentation slides, we talked about forming new relationships with lawyers, with engineers, with a number of people who will help you in your estate development. A lot of times, we realize that when people are interested in a house or a land, they don't want their family members to know, they don't tell their friends, they go on their own quietly. Some people even buy land without telling their spouse. You know, and when you get into problems, or when estate developers, unscrupulous estate developers realize that you're coming on your own, that's when you can get into all sorts of problems. So I would advise that the first person you have to speak to is a lawyer. You never approach an estate developer on your own. They can expatiate more the legal backing that transactions have to go through. But it's not just about meeting somebody who wants land, who's selling land, taking drinks or money and thinking that you have a piece of property. So it can be elaborated upon, but my first advice to anybody is don't go alone. Make sure you go with a professional, someone in the building industry who can advise you and tell you that the kind of parameters that you should be looking out for in somebody who's a competent real estate person, they cannot see. Then again, I hope I get some commission from Mr. Adokufo, but you should go to GHL and look at the list of accredited real estate developers, whether selling land or houses, and they'll be able to advise that, yes, we know this person, they have this track record, and you can rest assured that you will get your money or your property from them. There's so many scammers on the internet and on WhatsApp platforms now, so you have to be careful. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you very much. Mr. Adokufo, do you give commissions? Do you give commissions?
Yes, we do.
Okay, now that we know. All right, Marianne wants to know about curved buildings. Do you do curved buildings?
Yes, the second technology you saw, the what do you call it? The demonstration. We could do curved building.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I'm doing a ship building now. I'm designing it now. That I would like. Yes.
Okay.
Using
Let me follow up with James, who says, please, you are going too fast. Can he pay the foreman and then take his time and then build till he finish?
I presume that the cost is reasonable or is affordable enough that you can do it in stages. You can build to probably a roofing stage, and then you wait, and then roof, and then you continue from there. The finishing is a standard way of finishing. The finishing is not a typical affordable way of finishing. Your cost saving is in the superstructure, the foundation, and also the superstructure. But the rest of the finishing, you can take your time and do it as long as you want to take. Thank you.
I'll give the final slot to you, Kojo. Michael is saying, what if I'm not a salaried worker, but I can rely on my parents abroad, somebody here, somebody there? Do you have a space for me in your scheme?
So if you're not salaried and you're self-employed, you've got your own business, we can look at that source of income to qualify you and give you a facility. The way he described it, it seems more like occasional gifts from the parent. That's not something we can work with. Right. But definitely we can work with self-employed or informal sources of income, which we can verify.
I have 30 seconds. I'll give it to you for the last question. Can a person buy a house with a mortgage and rent it?
Yes, they can. it's called buy to let. So you let us know that you're buying this property with the intention of letting it and using the rental income to service the loan. So it's possible.
On behalf of Dr. and Mrs. Otabil, I would like to thank you, Mr. Cecil Abbey, for a fantastic presentation, Mr. Felix Amegashiti for an absolutely amazing presentation, and Mr. Kujo Adukwo for an incredible exposition. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are privileged to be here tonight and you are blessed by these three wonderful gentlemen, why don't you give them a huge round of applause as they take their seats. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We would like to join the applause of those upstairs as we thank Mr. Dr. Enimado for the presentation, Nane Kuyabeme for the presentation, and Mr. Samuel Ewu for the presentation. One more time, let's put our hands together for them for a wonderful, wonderful presentation. You know what? If there is any reason why you had planned not to be here next week, please revise your notes. Next week, be here big time. Tell somebody big time. Right. We'll take our offering now, and we want to encourage you. The exhibition that has been put out there, the cost of the exhibition, everything has been entirely borne by the church, just to give you a chance to own property. And we said to the companies, we'll bear the whole cost. If you have a discount, give the discount to our members. Why don't you put our hands together for Dr. and Mrs. Otabil for that initiative? And what you can do is to help us by giving a worthy offering to help us cover the cost of today's seminar. So give generously as the Lord has blessed you, and Zama will minister as we receive it.
4th November at Christ Temple. Life Improvement Seminars 2019. Theme: Preparing for the Future. Building your asset base. Building your finance base. Building your career base. Speaking schedule: Tuesday 12 November. Theme: Building your finance base. Topic 1: Building sustainable funding for the future. Speaker: Kingsley Ejemenu, General Manager, Operations, SNIT. Topic 2: Investing for the future. Speaker: Kate Thompson, Head of Consumer Distribution, EcoBank. Special highlight: Life Improvement Fair from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. every Tuesday in November, showcasing housing, financing, and investment options with opportunities to sign up. This will be a game changer. Life Improvement Seminars every Tuesday in November.
Tell somebody, wow. All right, so here's the good news. Next week, in terms of speaking, having done property or assets, we turn our attention to finance. Research has shown that life expectancy has gone up. That means that you will live longer. That means after you retire, you will live 20, 25 years where you are not earning regular income. So this is about ensuring that the quality of life after you retire is as good as the quality of life when you are working. Somebody put your hands together. So next week we'll break down that subject very well. So please, wherever you are, this is the place to be as we look at building your finance base. And you've seen the two speakers, one on building sustainable funding for the future, and the second one on investing for the future. It's for both formal and informal sector workers. That means even if you are self-employed, it's the more reason why you are our principal target to also attend. The companies that will be exhibiting next week: SNIT, EcoBank, Axis Pension Trust, Enterprise Trustees, Lene Services, and Axis Human Capital. These cover the areas of career, pensions, and also personal investment. Additionally, we'll retain some of our property companies this week so that those who initiated discussions or missed the chance to talk to them can see them again next week. I have word from both Felix and Kojo that they will be here exhibiting again next week. Let's put our hands together for all our partners. I want to thank our speakers as well in the second auditorium. Let's put our hands together for Dr. Enimado, Nanekuya Beme, and then also Mr. Samuel Ewu. We appreciate your contribution to tonight's discussion. After the service, please let's go to the stands. Take time today. It's live seminars. Let's take time at the stands and begin a discussion about making your hopes or dreams a reality. On behalf of Dr. and Mrs. Otabil, we say thank you to you all for coming. Let's rise together as we bring the service to a close. Turn to your neighbor, tell them, surely goodness, mercy, favor, increase, assets, property, blessings, protection shall follow you all the days of your life. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you. See you at the stands.